Tropical islands. Everybody's idea of paradise. Living in the middle of nowhere, with palm trees, sandy beaches, and the ocean lapping against your toes. But after this episode, you could just change your mind. This is Enter the Dark. And welcome to Enter the Dark, the show that goes to the macabre and disturbing corners of the world. I'm Jan from Film Daddy, and with me as always is Les from Tales from the Hanged Man. How's it going, Les?
It's going alright, yeah.
First of all, big thank you to everyone who's watched our first 3 videos and subscribed to the channel. At the moment, we are on 45 subscribers, which for us is amazing, so thank you so much for sharing, watching the videos and everything like that. It does mean a lot. If this is your first time to the channel, welcome, and please like, share, subscribe, tell all your friends about it, and we will try have a laugh. So then, tonight's episode, we're going to go to Paradise Island.
Oh, nice.
You know, a bit like Gilligan's Island, but without Ginger and Mary Ann. Were they the ones in Gilligan's Island? I think it was. Ginger.
Was it? Yeah.
In Mary Ann. I could be wrong. I've never
it's
seen...
It's not Fantasy Island, is it?
No, that's the little bloke going, "Bust the plane, the plane." Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they're making a horror film of Fantasy Island.
They are. They are. It's coming out soon.
That should be good. But no, this episode we're going to be talking about Clipperton Island. Now, trigger warning alert, and I'm being serious here. We are going to be dealing with the subject of rape, sexual abuse and sexual abuse of children. So please be warned, and if you are affected by that, it's probably best that you know now so don't just spring it on you. So, are you ready to dive into the waters and get our toes wet with this one?
Definitely. I'm so glad you said waters there, Jan.
What else was I going to say?
Sand.
So then, located about 1,000 miles south of Cabo San Lucas off the coast of Mexico in Central America lies Clipperton Island. Now, this island isn't a tropical paradise, far from it. It's essentially a coral ring populated by poisonous orange crabs, a few coconut palms, and a freshwater lagoon in the middle.
Poisonous orange crabs?
Yeah, who do play a very vital role in this story. So those crabs are there. You can't eat them because it's too poisonous.
Oh, right. So they're like poisonous to eat.
Yeah.
They've not got like poison claws, poison death claws.
That'd be awesome.
Wouldn't it just?
Yeah, but no.
No.
So the whole island altogether measures about 2 miles in length and is battered by torrential rain between May and October. And apparently the rest of the year it reeks of ammonia.
Lovely.
Yeah, not a place you want to go on your holiday. It was first discovered by John Clipperton, a privateer, pirate for hire, if you will, who served the British Crown helping stop the Spanish expansion into Central America and Mexico.
Them rascally Spanish.
Due to the island's location to the west coast of Guatemala and Mexico, he set up the base there, expanding serviceable caves for storage of his goods. But the island became coveted for other reasons, and those reasons were shit. Quite literally shit. Well, guano, to be precise.
Ah.
So,
hence the ammonia smell.
Yeah, so guano, you ask.
Guano. Tell us what guano is.
Well, let me tell you, Les.
Bill Nye the Science Guy. Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Science rules.
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Inertia is a property of matter.
Bill.
T minus 7 seconds.
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Guano is the accumulated excrement of seabirds and bats. As a manure, guano is a highly effective fertiliser due to its exceptionally high content of nitrogen phosphate and potassium.
I remember this. Remember this from Ace Ventura?
Yeah, When Nature Calls.
When Nature Calls, where they were making the plates and stuff.
Yeah.
Out of the batshit.
They did. The key nutrients which are essential for plant growth. However, it can also be used in the manufacture of gunpowder, which was key to the three countries fighting over the island. Mexico claimed ownership of the island until the United States government passed the Guano Islands Act in 1856, which made it legal for US citizens to claim guano-rich islands anywhere they were located, so long as they were uninhabited and unclaimed by another country. So the Americans are just like, you can have it even though it isn't yours. Napoleon III sent French troops to annex the island in
Napoleon III.
Napoleon III.
Alba back. Oh. That was an island as well.
You've been waiting for that joke.
I have. I bet I wrote that one. Hashtag talent.
So yes, Napoleon III did send troops to annex the island in 1858. Their plan was to land on the island and read out a proclamation of France's claim to the land. Their ship was in danger of running aground on the coral reef, while efforts to reach the island of smaller rowboats were thwarted by choppy waters and sharks.
Them sharks.
Yeah.
No jets, though.
Nope. We're going for a rumble with the greasy sharks. So instead of getting on the shore, they just sailed around the island reading out the proclamation and sailed away. Because that's good enough, just shouting at an uninhabited island.
Sailing away, like Enya. Sail away, sail away.
They realised there was guano, but they decided it was of inferior quality, so they left it. Even though they've never been there, they didn't get on land. They were just like, oh no, we left straight away. Why? Oh, it was inferior quality.
That is literally the same as a child going, can I have that toy? No, you can't have the toy. Fine, it was rubbish anyway.
It totally is. A small crew of Americans arrived in 1892 with the opinion that the guano was actually extremely valuable. They spent the next few years on the island trying to make it profitable, but were thwarted by poor market conditions and expensive resupplying trips. Mexico decided they wanted to get rid of the Americans, so they sent a small group over on a boat. Now, in one of the most cartoony things I have ever heard in my entire life, they lured the Americans away with a distraction. And while they were gone, they replaced the American flag with a Mexican flag. It's like Scooby-Doo shit, this is, isn't it?
It really is, yeah.
So, obviously confounded by this buffoonery, the American guano miners packed up and left. While Mexico and France argued over the claim to the island, the British did what we do best and arrived on the island and claimed it for themselves in 1899. That's it, we went and we put a flag in like we did with India.
Yeah.
And said, this is ours.
Just got off the back of everybody else's hard work.
Yep. So,
England.
The British Pacific Island Company, who had an understanding with the Mexican president, Porfirio Diaz, quickly set about building houses on the island, planted more palm trees, and using imported soil, made a garden to grow their own food. Later that year, President Diaz ordered that a lighthouse be built on the island, which was to be manned at all times. Although the British settlers tried their hardest, the island proved to be as inhospitable as ever, and with the price of guano falling, they decided to call it quits in 1909 and left the island, leaving behind a solitary man as the island's caretaker. With the British giving up their claim to the island, France and Mexico signed an arbitration treaty, leaving the fate of Clipperton's ownership to Victor Emmanuel III of Italy. While he deliberated, the Mexican government thought it would be a good idea to send men over to keep guard on the island. So now we've got the situation of the British don't care anymore. France don't want the guano, but they want the island. And Mexico are like, well, no, it's ours. We want the guano. So they're just letting the King of Italy decide, which is quite possibly one of the greatest ways to solve an argument.
Yeah, just... should we go with the world leader? The King of Italy, yes.
It's like, who's in pints that? It's mine. No, it's mine. I'm sure it's mine. No, it's mine. Let the King of Italy decide.
Yes.
13 army soldiers were sent to Clipperton Island, including a de facto governor named Ramon Arnaud, a 33-year-old military officer with a checkered past. I love a checkered past.
Yeah, me too. Sounds colourful.
It does.
Like Alma the elephant.
Well, listen to this. Within months of him enlisting in the army, he deserted his post, which led to 5 months in military prison. An unappealing post one after another is further punishment. Even though he was governor, he knew that what this assignment really was, but took some solace when he was told that he was handpicked for the job by the president himself.
Wow.
Followed by their families and servants, who were more excited to make the trip and found the buildings left by the British more than accommodating, and by 1910 almost 100 people called the island their home, with more children being born, with Governor Arnaud and his wife Alicia welcomed their first child, Ramon Jr., with 2 more arriving over the next 3 years.
Aww.
So yeah, it's doing good there.
So it sounds alright.
But life on the island was dull. There was not much to explore, and the most excitement came when supply ships arrived every 2 months. These ships also brought news of a revolution breaking out in Mexico, but while they were on the island, it didn't worry them too much. When supply ships stopped arriving, they were much more concerned.
As you would be.
Well, you would, yeah, but it's your source of living.
Yeah.
But they were relieved when in 1914 an American ship arrived on the island to collect the remaining British inhabitants. They brought dire news of the situation back in Mexico and also informed them of the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria. That started the global conflict, the likes of which the world had never seen before.
The Great War!
Yeah, World War II, the OK War. So the American captain suggested that the Governor Arnaud and the inhabitants of the island come with them on the ship, as Mexico had more pressing matters than sending supplies to a small island. However, Arnaud, who was probably worried about deserting a post again, decided they would stay on the island and carry on protecting it.
Commitment, that is, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
I'm staying here. I've learnt from my past mistakes.
I just want... Who's he protecting it from?
Yeah, who, by this point, it's like everybody else is fighting.
Yeah, the French are too scared to get off the boat. So, he's literally protecting it from,
Nothing.
Ghosts.
Maybe the sharks.
Seaweed.
Yeah.
Something. But then Americans gave them some supplies and set sail over the horizon. By 1915, they would regret the decision not to leave on the ship. The supplies had run out and the vegetable garden, which was cultivated by the British, had perished, leaving the settlers to survive on the only food they could find, which was the occasional coconut and whatever fish and birds they could hunt.
Want to know what they were growing in that garden?
Well, it's a vegetable garden, so I'm going to go out on a limb and say vegetables.
Does that mean that just us British are good at gardening?
No, I think it means we brought the soil, so we were cultivating it. Whereas these people were just like, oh, it's soil, so they didn't keep the soil. Might have watered it, more manure on it, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But these foods all lacked vitamin C, and by late 1915, many of them began to succumb to scurvy. So even though it's mostly discussed when making jokes about pirates, it's a horrible disease. So the symptoms start with bleeding gums and sore spots, which develops into depression, immobility, and open wounds that won't heal. In the end, the person afflicted by scurvy simply bleeds to death, with their loved ones unable to do anything about it. So that's a nasty way to go.
It's an horrible way to go. You don't hear about that much though, do you, these days, scurvy?
No, but I have noticed it was in the news recently that children were going into school with scurvy because they weren't getting enough vitamin C.
Sad, isn't it?
Tory Britain. Well, it is.
It's so true. It's so true.
The disease seemed to affect the adult men hard, and while people were dying off 1 or 2 at a time, the survivors struggled to keep the crabs from digging up the corpses and eating them. So those orange crabs eating the corpses, imagine that.
Poisonous orange crabs. I mean, there's poisonous and then there's vindictive, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. Vindictive, poisonous crabs. So by 1916, almost all of the men were dead, and so were many of the women and children, leaving around 26 survivors on the island. Governor Arnaud, who was suffering from the beginnings of scurvy, was motivated to get off the island, for the most part because his wife was pregnant with their 4th child. He spotted a ship one day and ordered all of the surviving men into a rowboat to help flag down the ship. It is debatable whether Arnaud actually saw this ship or if he hallucinated due to his illness and lack of food, But as the women and children looked on, they saw the small boat capsize and the men perish in the ocean. So, you've got no men on the island now, it's just women and children, scurvy, no food, no supply ships coming.
And a man who's hallucinating.
Oh, he's dead now.
He's dead now.
Yeah, so...
I would be after seeing that hallucination.
But there was no time to grieve as a storm began within hours of the incident. Alicia Enaud, along with Teresa Randon and Altagracia Quiros, gathered the 6 or so children and took refuge in the basement of the Enaud house. During the storm, Alicia Enaud would give birth to her 4th child, a son named Angel. This would be the last moment of joy they would experience for a long time.
Aww.
When they emerged the next morning, all of the houses and buildings were destroyed, along with the palm trees. But then they saw someone approaching them along the beach. It was the reclusive lighthouse keeper, Victoriano Alvarez. This lighthouse keeper, he's been there. Remember, the lighthouse had to be manned at all times. He's been there this whole time. These people haven't spoke to him. He's just in his little lighthouse, doing his job, knowing that people are dying, scurvy and that, but he's like, I'm staying away from them. Ignoring the conversation the women tried to strike up with him, he collected all of the weapons and threw them into the lagoon, keeping a rifle for himself. He turned to them and declared himself king of the island, and for the few years left, he turned their lives into a living nightmare. Alvarez enslaved the women and the children, administering beatings to anyone who dared defy him, and would constantly rape the women and the young girls, sometimes at gunpoint.
Ooh.
When one young girl refused to sleep with him, he made an example out of her by beating her to death in front of the others. His message was clear: I am king, I am to be obeyed. Most of the women, obviously, understandably, were too frightened to speak out against Alvarez, but 20-year-old Teresa Random would make life difficult for the lighthouse keeper. When she was with him, she would loudly tell him how she despised him, and when she was in camp, she would talk about killing him. Alvarez would constantly beat and rape her, telling her in front of the others that if a rescue ship ever arrived, he would kill her first and then the others so nobody could talk about his atrocities. The women were at his mercy and had no way out in sight until July 1917, when they decided action had to be taken. Alvarez brought Teresa back to the shelter where the women and the children stayed after delivering further beatings and abuse, and ordered Alicia Enaud to report to his lighthouse in the morning. And after he left, as a plan was formed. The following morning, Alicia and Teresa approached the lighthouse and found Alvarez cooking a bird outside that he'd caught. His face turned to anger as he saw Teresa, and he started to shout, demanding to know why she had brought someone else. While they argued, Teresa sneaked into the lighthouse and picked up a hammer and waited for a signal from Alicia, who gave a nod to her. Alvarez saw this and turned around to see what was happening, and was struck in the head by the hammer. As he lay on the ground, Alicia ran and got a knife, and the 2 women proceeded to batter and slice his head and body until it was completely mutilated, which, in my opinion, is the fitting end to that monster.
Yeah, he had that coming.
He did. Like I said, that is 2 years worth of those horrible things he was doing. You can understand, I'm not saying like, oh, why did they do it? You can understand, they wanted this hell to stop.
There's a sense that he was planning this as well. He probably wasn't.
Well, I don't know, because he knew they were on the island, and as soon as the men died, he come out.
Yeah.
So he probably had it in his mind of what he wanted to do.
Like a proper predator.
But as the women approached the settlement to tell the others that the king had been vanquished, they were met with the sight of a rowboat approaching them from the USS Yorktown, an American gunboat who had been patrolling the water and saw the island. They took the women and children aboard the ship and were told of the horrors that they had faced for the past 3 years. When they asked about the lighthouse keeper and what had happened to him, Alicia simply said, "He is dead, from scurvy." Later that day, Lieutenant Kerr, along with Commander Perrell, went back to the island to search, where they came across Alvarez's mutilated corpse being feasted upon by crabs. They saw the blood and the weapons and returned to the ship. For 17 years, the sailors and the survivors of Clipperton Island remained silent about what happened on the island between 1914 and 1917. What's happened there is, if they would have said they would have murdered him, the commander would have had to legally take them in for trial, because, it was a lighthouse keeper, they'd murdered him. But I think it was really good that they were like, this has happened to us, and they saw him, and they were like, you know what? I don't blame him. And they were like, yeah, let the crabs eat him.
Yeah.
So that's Clipperton Island. It's quite a dark little story, isn't it?
Yeah, it's horrific.
I mean, you cannot imagine how horrible, not only living on that island would have been without the supplies coming in, of people dying around you of scurvy, and, walking down trying to bury them, and you've seen the crabs eating decaying corpses and stuff. You think that's bad enough, but then when you see what happened to the women and the children on the island, it is like something from a horror film, but, it's actually happened. And, this is, early last century, so 1917, World War II was still going on, so... World War One, was still going on.
The Great War.
The Great War. But, yeah, so what are your thoughts on that, Les?
Yeah, it's a pretty horrible one. It's, I mean, for one, the Lighthouse Keeper definitely seems like... I mean, he was watching men die and just lying in wait, which is calculating.
Yeah.
Besides that, you've got the whole thing of, just people watching their, families and friends die beforehand. That's a horrific situation. I mean, that's almost like the Franklin expedition, isn't it? It's like they set out with the best of intentions, but it went to shit.
It definitely did.
But then, not only has it gone to shit, out of nowhere, you got this Lighthouse Keeper who's not done anything for the last, how many years was it? Regardless of that, I mean, it was a while, and I mean, he'd not made himself known to them really. He was just up there in his ivory tower, so to speak, and then he was like, oh. Yeah,
so they were there for a total of 7 years, from 1910 to 1917, and the last 3 years were the horrific, rape, torture, beatings that went on. So luckily they got rescued. But can you imagine if he had seen that ship? Because he said he was going to kill them all, so they couldn't tell. So it's really lucky that they decided to do that on that day.
Yeah, it married up quite nicely, if you could call it nice.
Yeah, it was sort of poetic justice that he died before he could kill them, so they couldn't be rescued. Yes, that was Clipperton Island. As I said before, it's quite a dark, disturbing one. If you read that in as a fiction novel, you'd be like, oh, that's a good story, but knowing that it actually happened, it's quite a scary thing. Please let us know what you think about that. Have you heard of it before? Have you not heard of it before? Please let us know down in the comments. And remember, if you did like this, hit the like button, subscribe to us, hit that notifications, because it really, really does help us out. And that is it for today. So, Les, it's been a pleasure once again.
It has indeed, Jan.
And we shall see you soon. And as we always say, stay spooky.